ran out of time on my phone. Sorry, I'm a bit tired, so I'll try and perk up a bit and just get through this. So I was saying, you know, that there's things that are normal in sexual development, and then, you know, children that develop actions which are considered problematic sexual acts, okay? And this is often a sign of abuse, and it doesn't have to be by a family member. It doesn't have to be that they are being abused. And there's also signs that people display that they are being sexually abused, and this could be, you know, injury to the genital area, UTIs. This is the presence of, what would you say, foreign bodies. It's discomfort in urinating, and poor hygiene and things like that, like poor self-hygiene, you know, which might be considered soiling, you know, stay away from me, you know, and staying away from another person as well. And to me, JonBenet didn't seem like she was trying to avoid Burke in any way at all. So, you know, what have we got? We could say that, let's just call them children, because that's what they both were back in 1996. You know, both children did exhibit some behaviours that were worrisome. JonBenet certainly displayed behaviours that were extremely worrisome. And the thing is that medical records for both, well, they're not available. And just off the top of my head, just from recollection, like most things are, sorry, but I feel that I don't think the grand jury got to see either Burke or JonBenet's medical records. And then the other thing that I just wanted to string together with this, for you to just do your own thinking about, make your own conclusions about, if anything, is Patsy Ramsey, you know, when she meets John Ramsey. So she was Patricia Poor, and she's a beauty queen. She's a teenage beauty queen. She's winning titles when she's still in high school. So, you know, you could say that she'd be coming to the attention of people that are interested in these types of things. Or, you know, she probably had a little bit of her own sort of taste of fame with write-ups and papers and things. And certainly she was very invested in these pageants. She entered Miss West Virginia and became Miss West Virginia, and entered Miss America 3 times, I think. It's interesting what she won her prize for in the Miss America pageant. It was for dramatic speech. It was for the dramatic reading of literature or something like that, you know, which I think is very interesting, considering later performances with perhaps lines that she's supposed to be delivering with, you know, in her drugged state. Maybe they weren't coming out satisfactorily for Mr. Ramsey, and he is literally miming and urging her on and licking his lips. So, you know, if they were married extremely young, when did they meet? And Patsy's family, like one of her sisters, I think it was Pam who gave JonBenet the Gold Cross that Christmas in 96. she performed in pageants as well, and her and Nedra and Patsy took great pleasure in getting JonBenet ready for the pageants, basically scrubbing her raw and primping and preening her to produce the glorious little beauty queen who performed on stage. And okay, so Patsy becomes quite ill when JonBenet's around 3, and Nedra is there supporting family, you know, staying and helping, and takes over a lot of the caregiving of JonBenet. And I guess you could argue that JonBenet started exhibiting the weirder behaviours around the time that Patsy was sick, and you could say that she exhibited the behaviours around the time that she was being cared for by grandmother Nedra, who by all accounts, I'm pretty sure you could take it for fact, Nedra is narcissistic and probably quite difficult and rigid, and you probably just pleased her, you know. And Patsy is her mother's daughter, and what becomes of people that are brought up by narcissists, they can have some serious issues with attachment and personality, and it's quite sad. So, you know, so what have I been saying here and in the last video? Okay, well, just sort of addressing a little bit the family dynasty, or at least, you know, the family traditions with John and John Andrew and Melinda, possibly Elizabeth, Beth, when she was alive, you know, to be involved in these scouting movements, or to be involved in some way receiving training for, you know, survival, being good at thinking on your feet and using things in your environment around you, and being a good sailor. You know, this takes certain skills, physical skills, coordination, just this natural sort of balance and grace and you know, athleticism of type, and it takes a desire to be that sort of person as well. And you know, there's a pleasure to be gotten from it, a pride, and there's, you know, maybe in John Andrew's case, just, you know, just gossip wise, really, I guess. So maybe I shouldn't say it, but, you know, to be boastful about sort of the pleasures of his life, being from a rich family, and, you know, he'd boasted that he could have paid the ransom money himself. You know, so maybe there's an elitist type thing to do with the sailing and everything as well. But I mean, this was just natural for the Ramseys. They'd had a lot of money since, you know, a reasonable amount of time bringing up the children. So they did grow up most naturally with, you know, skiing and, you know, not saying that that is the sport for the elite, but it can cost money to go and do these things with the specialist equipment, even if you're renting it, and just staying there and having the time to do different sorts of holidays at various times of year. So you are going sailing and you are going skiing. You know, this, they had money and they did spend it on this sort of lifestyle, okay? It's not a judgment as such, but, you know, I think, does it play a part? You know, with the family having private planes at their disposal and having a certain freedom in life that other people didn't have. You know, when you've got your own plane, and back then, you know, what you're having to do legally is quite different to going and hopping on one of these, say an international flight where everything's recorded and you need identification, and everybody on the plane, it's known who they are. I mean, you can fly around in your little plane, at least I know in Colorado and in the 90s, in and out of state and all around, on a whim whenever you wanted. And the airport, a return trip would probably take John Ramsey about an hour and a half from the home. So, you know, you've got this family, you know, shared enjoyment of the scouting movement, sailing, those sort of activities on one side of the family. And you've got on Patsy Paw's side, she's brought to the Ramsey side, she's brought in from the Paw side her the beauty pageantry, that importance on that type of image. So you've kind of got the beauty queen with the glamorous, you know, tycoon or playboy or businessman, you know, whatever, right? Being pretty, having a talent. You know, when you get married, you know, learning, you know, growing up to marry, being brought up to marry well and to be a good wife, and to, you know, so you volunteer and you contribute and you bring that kind of the glamour and the neatness and the sort of the drama to the equation, you know. And is this just all some sort of powder keg? Who was attractive to whom? Why? It was this mutual attraction and this mutual, you know, parts of equation having an answer, an outcome. You know, it's a mutual exchange and agreement of things, isn't it? And it's this bringing together of values and things, of certain values, and what's treasured and what's prioritized and what's important. You know, but much can be made out of, you know, what the Ramseys would hide, who they would protect and why. I mean, look, you know, and how they would act. Now, okay, you might think on one hand, if a small child was accidentally harmed by a slightly older child and this person had scouting experience and knowledge to take action, does it mean they're a complete idiot? Does it mean they go, oh, this is exactly the type of situation. I've just got my 10th my 10th edition of scouting, and in it says make the toggle, and in a situation like this drag someone with it. You know, maybe that's how JonBenet's hair got tied up into the rope that's around the garrote, which is the stick from the Spanish root of the name for this type of weapon. It's been used by serial killers, by the way, too, made exactly in this manner, in this scouting manner, that several members of the family were trained in, okay? So, I mean, what do you find plausible, you know? Who's getting medical treatment for what? Who's in therapy for what? Is it all because they're so damaged because Patsy's sick? You know, when did Patsy become a good Christian? Well, when she had her death scare, you know, that's when she started investing heavily in her Christian faith and her faith in the afterlife. You know, I think facing death will do that to people. It's perfectly natural. So, you know, she became close to Father Roll, and he was indeed there on that awful Boxing Day, wasn't he? You know, interestingly about the phone records and you know, who would have called people, we actually don't know. Did John call the Whites and Patsy called others? Yeah. Sorry, I'm a bit tired, so this is a bit scattered, but there were just things. I'm not trying to plant anything in your mind or anything. I'm just trying to say, There's a lot of ways to put cheese on a cracker, and there's a lot of ways, as someone famously said, that it can slide right off. Okay, and I think people should be aware of them, and I think, be careful where you're being led, and by, whom in this case, and why. Depending on which book you read, there are chiefs that came in and based on just, or the second-hand, the reading of things, they extrapolate that Burke done it, and then there's the people that write Patsy did it, and there's the people that wrote Lou Smith did it, and there's Lou Smith's version of things that an intruder did it, sorry. And how they view different things, their attitudes about things, their imprint onto facts or things that aren't true but are out there. That's what's, developing their ideas about what happened. And I wonder sometimes, is the one thing that they're not doing is actually, and it's pretty awful, go to that place, be there in those moments and go through it. Now, yes, someone who has been a bedwetter and possibly putting, feces around the place, who has possibly been put in front of people who are child abusers, whether it's outside of the home, but, in scouting groups, for example, or just inside the home or whatever, yes, they can develop some pretty awful practices. You wouldn't believe that children can do it, and they do. Just what makes sense, though, in terms of the way things were covered up. Would a ransom note be, important if it's only going to lay suspicion on the family themselves, if they're worried about existing signs of abuse? I mean, they were already going and seeing doctors and things like that. Sure, an autopsy is going to show more, but why cast doubt on themselves when they could, have just sort of cleaned things up as it is, without the note, and maybe then just been bereaved as people that didn't realise that something was happening to their daughter, you know what I mean? And that's the other thing too. So many things were removed from that home. We don't know what was sent along with Burke's to the Whites that very morning. We don't know what was taken by Pam Poor, Patsy's sister, when she went in with the cops. She took so much stuff away, and it wasn't actually, it wasn't documented properly or checked. It could have been anything. Lists upon lists of these things, and including golf clubs and all sorts of things, large items, and could have been anything. It was things from all over the house. And prior to that, Patsy Ramsey, bags were taken out of the house with belongings. Okay, so many things could have gone, the roll of tape, a thing of cord, so many things were removed. And what does it look like to you when you see the Ramseys together in interviews and things? And anyway, this is so rambly. I'm obviously very tired. So, look, I'll go. Just think about that, the scouting, the sailing, the medical records, the types of families that came together, and how it's this kind of, perfect type of American dynasty in the creation, isn't it? In the making. You know, and who would really want to destroy it? And out of those people, how would they do it? Now, yes, I have thought about this. If it isn't someone in the Ramsey family, my feeling is it's not anything to do with business or anything, because it would have been really screwed up so much more royally for John in another way. Even if it did involve his daughter, it would have he would have been brought down differently, I think. If someone had sour grapes, I mean, to hurt the child, and, you know, for JonBenet to suffer like that and put together with the existing abuse, which I believe in, I believe there was existing abuse, it doesn't make sense. To me, it being personal to John Ramsey, it's if someone that he has really hurt and damaged has done it, or it's someone that he's damaged has just done it, if you know what I mean, not to hurt him, but because he's damaged them. And I, you know, and it would be maybe because he has hurt their child, so they're going to hurt his and take him down in the process, sort of thing. But again, they could have done a better job of ensuring that it looked exactly like John. Why leave it open for all these scenarios? I mean, the person who would be trying to throw all this muck around onto the walls, etc., wouldn't that just be John himself? And wouldn't someone be just playing their role alongside him? Who knows what someone told someone about what happened, or were they caught? But, you know, certainly this is, it doesn't point to me, just me who knows nothing. I'm not an investigator. I don't work for the FBI. Not that that seems to have been the way this could have been solved. You know, but it just seems, it doesn't seem right, does it, that this is someone, you know, John will tell you this. It's John telling you this. It's someone that has a thing against him. Well, John, the only thing that they can have against is it's an eye for an eye. Okay? That would be the only thing that makes sense, mate.